Wake up, buy here, pay here people. It's a beautiful day. Go grab yourself another cup of joe and say hello to Jim and Michelle Rhoads on the Buy Here, Pay Here Morning Show. Take it away, you two.
Hey,
Good morning,
everybody.
Hello
Welcome.
from North Ogden, Utah.
Yeah, it's a beautiful fall day. Yesterday, trick-or-treaters, we had one.
Yeah, we had one at our place.
I think Jim went and spent like $20 or more on candy. We have so much candy.
This is the perfect example. This is why you buy the candy that you like, so that if you don't have very many trick-or-treaters,
I'm like,
right?
well, I mean, yes. And you bought my favorite candy bar.
Oh, good.
And you bought your favorite candy bar.
Yeah.
And then you bought Tootsie Rolls.
No, I just bought a cheap bulk pack of something. So, for the kids who are mean, you got to give them the cheap
you can
stuff.
Throw
right?
them at them. But it was just one really cute little girl that came around about 6 o'clock. And then,
that was the extent of it.
Otherwise,
it was a normal Tuesday night for us, right?
Yeah, it was pretty much so. Much so. It was a good night, though.
Couple of announcements.
Yeah.
Do you want to do our kind of cool, fun new announcement?
About
our ambassador.
So we I don't even know how to announce this. Well, we have some people that are colleagues in the space that are just so happy to promote White Hat Way and support White Hat Way and our mission and what it is that we're doing. And there are some that have just they've been just really, really vocal about their support and we'll talk to other people about it. And, it's not just like during the show or whatever. And so we've, we're working on growing White Hat Way as a brand. And it's in development. So we have one particular person that has just been probably the cheer squad captain.
Yeah.
For what it is that we're trying to do. And so
what it is we're doing.
What it is that we're doing. Yes. Right. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. That, good correct there. And we, we've been working on a badge system for dealers, vendors, honorary and all of that. And we came up with an ambassador badge for White Hat Way. And I've already sent the artwork to her and to use as however she wants to use, but we just wanted to recognize Karen Burnett for how much she's just such a champion for what it is that we're trying to do. And we're really super grateful. And we just, we thought about this a couple of days ago and realized that, we want to be able to say thank you in not just, thank you, but in a meaningful way for what our mission is. And so that was just one of the reasons why it's let's do a badge for an ambassador.
Yeah. And we expect to extend the invitation to a couple others to kind of, join as kind of what we'd call a White Hat ambassador. But this was our idea. They didn't ask to be an ambassador. No. So those of you who know Karen from social media, it's Karen Kane Barnett. And so she's that way on Facebook. She's a national rep with SDA, Capital Provider. And she's just somebody who gets it. She understands the mission. She's excited that we're talking about this. And she's somebody that we're happy to tap as an ambassador. And so look for a few more of those. But we're thrilled to have
really happy.
her joining us in that way. So thanks, Karen, for that support. And we're happy to recognize that you get it. You support the grand mission. So thanks for that. But we got a couple other quick announcements. We got
good morning,
on Friday. We have Justin Wallman from Ohio, and then Keith Thacker from Kentucky will be joining, and we'll be having a conversation around collections policies. Or should dealers be adjusting collection policies in this shifting economy? So that'll be Friday's conversation. Then we're working on getting some things teed up for next week. We've got quite a few White Hat Wednesdays figured out. Just got to, plug people into those spots.
We're also gonna put something together based on something that I told you I troll social media for what it is that's a topic of dealers, and we're putting together something on what's happening with some of the big capital providers. And one of the most recent is Byrider. And so we wanted to kind of have a conversation about what that is.
I want to kind of read that in full.
Like.
That doesn't necessarily mean what it sounds like on the surface. It's just a decision not to access additional funds, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And so let's just be careful about what that really
but it's
suggests.
it kind of goes into it aligns with a lot of the things that we're seeing, that there's a shifting in well, I'm not just attitude, because it's not attitude. There's a shifting in people feeling comfortable in certain things.
Yeah, and I think it's we at the top of the capital markets, we've got some people that we want to bring in and talk to about what this really means. That the top of the capital markets, which we don't personally pay a lot of attention to, but you can see that there's a shift in appetite, and that happens. That happened back in 2008. It's happened before that.
It cycles in and out.
People will enter.
But we're going to be talking about that next week, so be watching for that when we announce what our lineup for next week is.
Of course.
And then some other things. But
so for today, we should bring in our guest. We got Mr. Seth Merrifield joining us.
Good morning. I'm trying to add him. There you go. All right. Good morning, Seth.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good.
How
are y'all?
We lost your image.
I don't see your image on the screen, so hold on a quick second, and it's slow.
There you come.
There you are.
We got a bit of a delay on our side, so
welcome. And this is the first time that we've had you on the show, and and we see you out there a lot in some of the different social platforms that I troll.
And I got to say, for our viewers that are tuning in, for those who saw his image on the tile for today's broadcast or see his picture on social media, the whiskers were new for me. I hadn't seen the full beard, and I think Seth just started No Shave November. That's only like 9 hours worth of whiskers, right? So
no, I got out of the military recently fully, so I'm embracing the not having to shave.
There you go.
Nice.
Nice. So anyway, glad to have you here. You're one of those people that we know well from social media. We chat. We're in the same conversations often, feel like we know a good bit about you, but this is our first time to really spend some time. And so, our viewers today are going to get a chance to learn a little bit about you, same time we do. So maybe just start by taking us back to how you found yourself in the car business. And by the way, I know you come from a military background. Thank you for your military service. And then let's talk about how that leads into your automotive career and now Buy Here, Pay Here.
Well, I kind of just got thrown into this. I met my wife while I was stationed in Omaha, and I got out of active duty and joined the reserves, moved down here to the panhandle of Florida, just north of Pensacola. The dealership is in Alabama. We're really close to the state line.
I was wondering about that, because it's like you live in Florida and the dealership is in Alabama. I was like, that's a commute.
Yeah. The dealership's like 4 miles from the state line. It's not.
That might mean that you're also close to a Buc-ee's. Is that right?
They put up that new Buc-ee's down there in Alabama near, just past Mobile.
No,
I do
no, it's odd. What is it?
What?
Beaver. Sorry. Go ahead.
No possum. Anyway, so sorry, Seth.
No, you're fine. You're fine. I had no experience selling cars. My dad was a mechanic my whole life. He had his own shop and stuff, so I knew that side of it a little bit. This dealership was owned by her grandmother for years, since like 91, I think is when they had it. She ended up with it in a divorce. She was planning on closing it down. And I got my business degree while I was in the military. And so I thought I'll wing it and take it over and see what happens. And I fully took it over back in 2019.
Okay.
And it was already Buy Here, Pay Here. So there's been a lot of bumps and bruises along the way, trying to learn everything. Because back when I took everything over, I didn't know anything about anything when it came to Buy Here, Pay Here. I just had what I was taught. So, and that's where we're at. We moved recently to a bigger location right up the road. I started the building was 350 square feet.
Wow.
you know, and finally now we're in a spot. The total building size is about 9,000 square feet. So.
Wow.
Excellent. Yeah.
That's like an improvement. You're probably, I don't know what to do with all the space.
Yeah, it's nice though.
We'll grow into it.
You do grow.
Yeah.
Well, that is one thing about when you get a bigger space, you tend to fill it.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So what about about how large is your team these days? About how many people?
I've got 2 techs in the shop, a collections girl, and then I guess I would call her like an office manager. She handles a lot of the sales paperwork, title work, stuff like that. Yep. And then me. That's it.
Yep, that's representative of a lot of the folks that we see out there. So that's very typical. So I want to talk about obviously your decision to reduce interest rate. You were, we talked briefly before the show started here that you had a couple of motivations in doing that, but maybe just talk us through what led you to that point. What kind of math were you working with? What were you working up against, and what problem did you feel like you solved in changing that?
Yeah. So I know everybody knows the cost of cars has just continued to go up. And so our ACV has steadily gone up from about 6,000, 6,500 up to our average now is about 8,000, 8,500. And I've started dabbling in some trucks that are upwards of $10,000 and $11,000. Our interest rate, there's no state max in Alabama. The interest rate was 26%, and it had been that way for years. When I took over, I upped it from 18%. I just took it all the way up to 26, and it had been that way. And in getting these higher dollar vehicles, and with the way the economy has been, we've started to see an influx a little bit better tiered customer. Okay. Not such deep subprime. And so some things started to happen with that. One is I had customers coming in on these nicer pickup trucks with $3,000 to $5,000 down, and they were walking away on a payment that was upwards of $575, $600 a month on a 10-year-old pickup truck. The other side of that is, and I mentioned it to you briefly before the show, is that for the first time ever, we started having customers actually ask about the interest rate and what it is, and actually care about what the interest rate is and how much that finance charge is and everything. So I talked about it with the team here and a few other people. And originally we thought about doing a tiered system. And I just didn't want to deal with the compliance issues that come with trying to have different interest rates for different tiered customers. So ultimately I kind of did some math on my own over a couple of weeks and decided to drop the interest rate. I dropped it 2% down to 24. And it seemed to move the needle enough to where I don't have customers gawking at, the crazy high payments when they're bringing $4,000 down, and still trying to convince them to swallow a $625 a month payment or something. Right. It seems to have helped the mindset too. We've used it as a selling point recently, that we've just lowered our interest rate, and it seems to help the mindset of customers know that we want this to be a successful transaction. We want to build a relationship here and not just sell them a car and collect all we can and then move on.
Yeah, good. So that's part of why we kind of wanted to tie this into a White Hat Wednesday. I think you've followed us enough or know our social media. Really, you can't hide from us. We're out there 3 times a week. So
they try.
So yeah, people have to find us eventually. But now the thing, a little bit about what we're encouraging people to get familiar with through White Hat Way, right? Yeah. So that's really, about, I heard you touch on a couple things, like you obviously, you're trying to make sure customers are successful. So obviously in doing that, I'm hearing you solve a couple of business problems. From a marketing standpoint, you are able to talk about that you reduced interest rates, right? So that's, and what does that say just by itself? If I saw your ad that says, as a company, we made a decision to reduce interest rates, I'm a potential customer. What does that say to you? Like, just, you guys tell me. If you're consumers, what does it say? So there's
if the tables were turned and Seth, you were the one that was like looking for a car and having a problem with being sliding into steep subprime, and it's like you see something like that, what would that say to you? Like,
it's a good thing, right? Like, that's where I want to buy a car. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I think it's also just the customer success element. Like you're hoping to win more customers by being able to get to a lower payment. Of course, you could have, even at the higher interest rate, gone to a lower payment, but then you push term And now you really you're having trouble getting the customer to avoid being seriously upside down, right? And so it's some sort of balance I'm hearing you strike as you ran through the math on that APR. You give up a little bit of income potentially and that APR, but you felt like you gained enough in exchange.
And George asked, from 26 to 24, how much did that change the average payment and term?
So term didn't really change. And that was one of the things that I looked at. I didn't want to stretch the term out anymore. Our average term is sitting right at like 41 months currently. That went up from 36 when COVID and everything happened. And I didn't want to stretch it out anymore. I feel like time in the vehicle is just the killer for everything. There's more opportunity for stuff to go wrong. Customer change their mind, want something different, whatever. So term didn't really change. Our average term is still the same. It did drop our average monthly payment around $25 to $30.
Okay.
And it just seemed like it was just enough to where, it bumped customers that were at $615 to just under $600 a month total. And that seemed to move the needle enough to keep people happy. I think that's where the line was, we do most of our payments bi-weekly. So people were seeing $300 to $315 every 2 weeks, and doing the math in their head, it was over $600, $650, and they just couldn't swallow it. And then getting the payment down under that $600 mark seemed to be the kicker to keep people interested in, purchasing the vehicle.
I have a question for you. You said that people were asking about the rate. Was this your new clientele that were new to subprime, or was this overall? Because I'm just curious about whether or not even people that have been living in subprime for a long time, is this something they're becoming more aware of?
It's mainly new customers. I haven't had any customers that we have currently come back and ask, well, hey, I'm at this interest rate. Why don't I have the new one? Or why didn't I get a better one or something like that? We haven't had any of those issues. It's been mainly new customers. None of them that have asked have been super subprime. We're talking 5 to 550 type score people is where we start to see customers ask about it and actually really want to look at the contract and go over every single number that's on there and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's not a bunch. It's a few people a month, but it's definitely enough to where we've noticed that customers are conscious of it and asking about it.
Yeah.
Do you find that customers ever ask about the term, the contract length?
Yeah, not as much though.
Not much though, do you? And so I think that's the part I wanted to kind of drill down to, because the math person in me is fascinated by the calculations here, and depending on any given dealer who wants to work through this math, depending on where your average down payment is. What I'm thinking, Seth, as I hear that, is like the customer doesn't fight so much on term. So that decision to cap your term was really more about you and your business, right? The customer wasn't necessarily fighting you, but you just know what the recipe is. If you decided you could have made a policy decision to stretch to 48 months,
right?
But you knew that was a recipe, right, for failure. So that's not a good thing for you or the customer.
And
even if you
that's
could
a
get
decision
to
to make sure that your customer is as successful as they can be. I mean,
Right.
I think we all know in the industry that if your car's not working, you're not paying.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think one other thing that kind of is a parallel on this with the math is, I don't know if you saw the broadcast we did some months ago about, we went through the math about what it looks like to trade a customer at about the 30-month mark. I don't recall now why I chose the 30-month mark. It's probably around some other conversation, but I wonder what your attitude is about trading customers who make it to 24 and 30 months. Do you expect to trade them?
Yeah, we try to.
Okay. Yeah.
Really. Typically around the 18-month mark is where we start, I guess, kind of floating the idea to somebody.
How often do people take you up on that?
Pretty often. I'd say we probably on average, I'd have to go back and look to know for sure, but I'd say on average we get 2 to 3 a month.
Okay.
Right on.
Customers trading back in. Some are sooner than that. Some are, well into the loan. I try to catch them before they hit, the 32 month mark because they start to see the light at the end of the tunnel, it seems like. And they're like, oh, I don't want to trade it in and start all over again because I've got such a low balance on this one.
Yeah.
We need to get a picture of that guy who did the Captain Obvious commercials. I want to throw in a Captain Obvious thing here. So one of the things in our business, Seth, is obviously profit's not the same as cash flow, right? We just talked about that with Gene Daughtry on Monday. And so I think what's interesting, when you tell me as a dealer, you would be okay with trading the customer at 30 months as an example.
Well, starting at 18.
Okay.
Even.
But let's just pick the 30-month mark. If your customer gave you 2,000 down and $550 a month or whatever the number is for 30 months, and then you traded them, then the cash for you is the same, on the APR adjustment, for example. The cash that you enjoy from the customer over that 30 months is the same. The question now is how much income are we reporting across that 30 months, right? So this is where I say it's kind of the obvious thing about, cash and profit are two different things. You'd have to look at your profitability across that period of time. But I think it's an example of, something that we need to be mindful of. If it's our expectation to trade the customer in 30 months, then do we care a lot about how much of that profit is in the markup of the car and how much of it is in the APR? There's other factors to consider for sure, right? There's a lot. If you wanted to consider an exit strategy and something changed, you needed or wanted to get out of the business, and the value of the paper would be a factor, right? All these things to consider. Yeah. I'm simply saying if you're in it for the long haul and you're expecting to trade your customers before they get to the end anyway, then you kind of have to look at the math on, where does that leave me? And all this APR stuff is just among the big levers, as we hear people, it's one of the levers that you can adjust. But really what I'm hearing you say is you're just trying to get to a payment that fits, one, to earn more business, to earn more customers. You're going to win more customers when you can get there. And two, those customers are going to be more successful across that 41 months that you're running and try to keep that term down. Yeah. And then, we said with Gene on Monday that, it feels to me like with the economy doing what it is, it's really kind of a good idea for us to adopt a strategy where we really think about, 12, and in particular, I'm thinking like 24 months. Think about what it looks like in your business for the next 24 months. And then where does that leave us? And we could recalibrate, at that point in time based on whatever's going on in the economy and kind of rework our business strategy a little bit at that point in time. But I hear all those things in your decision to make that adjustment as you're thinking longer term, you're thinking about success, and you're really just, first and foremost, you're trying to get to a payment, but you want that customer to be successful. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So that's why we're kind of going there again on a White Hat Wednesday. We just think there's a white hat tie-in to this, and there is to a lot of things, right? It's like when we think about, some of these matters, and I'll just say it, Seth, like one of the things that we ask dealers to think about is maybe as you look at all of these matters of business and the mathematics, those mathematics things are often a matter of the head. And we would ask them to also bring in the heart component. Think about the heart component and the success of that consumer, right? And so that's something that, we don't hear a lot of business coaches talking about that, but we just think it's an appropriate time. I heard you say, I think before we started the broadcast, that your focus on customer relations is important. Like that's a big deal to you.
Yeah, it's huge. We actually on a monthly basis, I have to have a sit down with my collections bureau, because we all have those problem customers, right? They, it's like trying to water a rock to get a payment out of them. But, I constantly tell them they have to put themselves in their shoes, right? Yeah. And that's how, even during the sales process, that's how I want everybody operating, right? You have to flip the tables and look at it from their point of view and understand where they're coming from. We all know there's customers that lie and do whatever they need to do to get out of a payment. But to me, the majority of them are actually good people. They're just in a bad spot or don't know how to manage their money. And it's our job to help them do that.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. Very well
and
said.
that's empathy.
Right.
And, one of the things when you said that they'll lie to get out of payment, it's when you're talking about the people that get a car, and I'm going to differentiate, there are people that will get a car with no intent of ever paying and, of defaulting on that loan. That is such a small percentage of people that we work with.
Yeah.
It's such a small, and, as a collector, it's like, that's the person that it's in their head. is
Right.
is that one person. But most of our clients, most of our customers, most of our community want to do good. They just don't have the skills sometimes, or the education, or the economy's squeezing.
Mm-hmm.
And so they have to make a hard choice sometimes, about, and where money's going to go. And so we hope that through education with your collector and all that, it's like, this is an important thing. This means a difference. And we understand that you wanted to be able to do this or this, but this is an important thing.
Yeah.
We were talking the other day about this whole idea of having open communication with your customers. What are you doing to foster there being communication? Are you doing anything other than what it is that the collector is the communication that they're having just through the monthly or biweekly?
I don't know. I don't think we're doing anything too crazy. I mean, the collector, she reaches out on a daily basis to everybody, text, call, Facebook, whatever. But part of our sales process is we have I call it a closing letter that we have everybody sign and go over. And a big part of that closing letter is about the communication aspect from the customer, right? Like they know they're not our only customer. They know it's hard for us to quote unquote babysit everybody. And we tell them we've seen it all, and things happen, and we understand life happens. A crazy power bill because it's 110 outside and the electric bill's $400 for running the AC.
Yeah.
But we just really push that they communicate with us. Originally, when we started that, I was a little worried that it was opening up a opportunity for customers to just come up with any excuse in the book and just say, "Oh, I can't pay this month." But it seems to have worked well. We've got more and more customers who are just, being more open about their situation, whether it's they're sick or a kid got sick or, they had a hangover and didn't go to work for 2 days. And so they couldn't make their payment.
Yeah.
I think really push everybody along the sales process pushes that, like our number one thing is for you to communicate with us. We don't know what we don't know, and we can't help you if we don't know. So that's been the biggest help, I think.
So I'll share with you the way that I used to say it. One of these things I borrowed from a manager I met in Iowa years ago. And I like what it represents visually, even though we don't quite get to do it this way as much anymore. But he used to say to his customers, look, I can solve most anything if you will come and sit in that chair, meaning the chair across from his desk. Come sit in that chair and talk to me, and I'll help you. So I kind of, in my own dealership, some years later, I adopted the same approach and said, look, there's not anything that's going to come up during the time that you're financing this car that we can't work through together.
Right.
You got to come sit in that chair, or in this case,
FaceTime
or whatever the new language would be, right? So however we communicate, but it's like the idea is the same. It's like if we can communicate, if we can talk through it, we can figure it out. Because again, back to what we talk about is that kind of that 10-year approach. If whatever problem we're facing today is, if we kind of look at it through a 10-year lens or beyond, we expect that customer is going to be with us a very long time. And so whatever we're dealing with today, we can work through it. We're just going to have to know what the situation is, communicate with us. Let's figure it out together. And when we bring that empathy, we're talking about, then we have a better chance. But we certainly understand, Seth. It's like the thing about that open door policy, like that's what I call it, where you're talking about when you encourage communication. I made a note about it because I want to bring that particular subject back in the future. And you basically spoke to it, without us saying anything. It's like, that's the thing that you would be nervous. You would think that's going to encourage, and it can sometimes make you get more incoming calls and you kind of get that babysitting thing. But I think that's so much better than the alternative.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's so much better. It's like a necessary cost of doing business, the time that we invest in that quote unquote babysitting. And so I think it's an appropriate thing. And I think what we're seeing is, as this economy, changes, and we're seeing, the top of the capital market is shifting and those kind of things. I think it's a time to put a premium on the customer relationship. And that means knowing what's going on in their lives. And so I think that's what Michelle was touching on about, ways to be connected with your consumers in a way that, we feel like we always should be, but I think in these times there's going to be a premium on that. So, so I hear you doing it anyway. So I want to ask you before we wrap up, like, where are you sitting after 3.5 years in business? This was a new thing. I want two questions. One, what's your, as a business person, now that you've been in the the trenches of Buy Here, Pay Here for 3.5 years. What do you feel about it? And what is your outlook about the industry and your business? Do you feel confident in the future of your business? Are you nervous? Share with us where you're at.
Yeah. It's been a ride for 3.5 years, 4 years. Again, I knew nothing about this business when I started. It was a struggle in the beginning, and there's still daily struggles, but I think the outlook is good. I'm in this for the long haul. I'm 31, so still pretty young, got plenty of time to build something up. And I didn't do this through the last recession in 08 or whatever, and so I know I've asked around and stuff. I think the outlook personally is good. September was our best month ever for sales.
Great.
The issue lately has been parts and getting vehicles reconned and ready for sale, but that's always an issue, I think, for everybody. With the way the economy is going, we're seeing better customers come in. We've been able to consistently have a higher ACV vehicle, get more down, have higher payments. So I think the outlook is good. I think we're just going to end up seeing more of those, mid-tier customers come in as some of these banks fall out of the subprime market and stuff. I see a lot of potential over the next year, 2 years.
I think the fact that you chose to move into a bigger building tells us a lot about your strategy and your outlook for the business. And we share that idea on the opportunity. We think the opportunity is going to be significant. And I will just tell you that over the years, I've been able to say that, things can be happening up here in the economy and the stock market. It could be doing dips and dives up there, but down here in Buy Here, Pay Here, we got plenty of business opportunity. We can kind of be, pretty steady. And I wouldn't ever use the word recession proof, but I certainly think we're recession resistant. And so, that just means that opportunity is going to be there for us. We just got to, take steps to make sure we're as healthy as possible and that we're thinking about the customer success as we, and how that relates to our own. So I like your decision to cut that rate, and we'll be interested to keep in touch with you and see, what that means to your results and your profitability over time and all those kind of things. We'll be interested to see how that pans out. But I'm glad that you made time to join us today. It's an interesting thing, and we think you're in the right business. So
thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me. It was great.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
First off, George is asking what your average ACV is.
Average currently sitting at like 8,300
with a few 11,000s.
Outliers in there, but that's the average is 83.
Yeah. And then from me, bravo on lowering your APR, because it was actually helping your customer. It was helping you as well. And so, we're not always asking, do the best thing for the customer only. It's like, because it does. Being good to your customer is good business.
Yeah.
And it will come around and benefit you. And then just one thought too. I love this letter the form that you're doing at the end. It's like, it's about communication, is that you maybe send that out again about 5 days after purchase of car. And, via text or something like that, because there's a lot of information thrown at you when you're closing the car. And if communication is key, then make sure that it stays the front of the mind with the whole thing. So
sure.
Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope we can have you again on sometime. So just keep in touch.
So great to spend some time with you. Yeah, if you'll stand by for just a minute, we'll close up the show and come back and do a proper send off. So
absolutely. Sure. Stick around for just a minute. All right.
All right. So all good. Yeah, that's I have to say we'll have to watch and see how the numbers go, but lowers interest rate and has the best sales volume month ever.
Yeah. And
we don't know yet
having
if we
it
can make
be
a
that
correlation.
$30 to $50 a month difference. $30 to $50 a month right now for a lot of our customers who are feeling the crunch at the grocery store, at the gas pump. $30 to $50 almost fills a car up.
I mean, that's like it's like Halloween candy. It's like,
That's what he
you
said.
know,
But it is. I mean, it's Tommy, our friend Tommy Brandis. He's like, I am amazed at how much people can get out of a single dollar. And so $30 to $50 for people that are our customer base is a huge deal for them. So, and it can be the difference between filling up their tank to go to work that week, or the difference of, buying lunch for their kids for school, that kind of stuff. So
I'm just realizing that could be another impact from the economy. It could be that the word got out that I bought cheap candy, and that's why we didn't get. It could be maybe maybe spread amongst the neighborhood. They saw me carrying those cheap Tootsie Rolls or whatever.
Exactly. Hey, everybody! Thank you so much for joining us today, and we will see you on Wednesday, where we have Keith Thacker and Justin Wallman, and we're going to be talking about doing
collections policy.
Have a great day, everybody. Thanks again so much for joining.